Hi, this is Isabel. Welcome to today's Facebook Live on branding yourself for career change. So this is part of a series that I do, basically a Facebook Live every month. So you're welcome to check my calendar under events on my Facebook page, and you can find the topics until the end of the year. If you have a topic that you're really interested in, feel free to submit it to me because I'm looking for ideas, suggestions. I'm also writing blog posts, and that's also based on market needs and what people are looking for. So really the objective of this session today is to talk about branding yourself for career change. This is something that a lot of people are asking me questions about, so I want to spend some time to give you as many tips and advice as I can. The way this will basically go today is that I want to cover a little bit of thinking behind how you rebrand yourself for career change. Then I want to give you some steps, 6 steps to follow. And then finally, I will also give you some actionable items that you can use immediately after this video today. This is what I do in all my Facebook Lives so that you can have some practical knowledge to apply. So today, basically, I also want to answer your questions, so feel free to pop up anytime and I will answer to my best knowledge. I'm also checking online to see if you have questions already. I'm welcome to take them. This is basically your time with me. So the idea is to serve you with knowledge. So to start with the topic of branding yourself for career change, the notion of branding is something I want to spend a little time talking about. You probably heard about branding in terms of marketing. This is something that companies use to talk about how they communicate towards the world, what type of image they want to show to the world. So this is the base of the foundation of my strategy when I work with candidates on looking for a job or doing career transition, because everything now is about communication and marketing, and you need to get really good at it. So to give you a little bit of an example on branding, if you look at companies and what they do, basically the example of Dove. So Dove is basically selling soap, beauty products, and the way they differentiated themselves from other companies is that they wanted to show all women of all sizes, all types of skin color, all kinds of background, so that basically people can say, I can recognize myself in that brand. So that's just one example of how brands can use different types of techniques to be known and to get attention. So Dove is a good example. If you have the chance, check their videos. They're quite interesting. So to put that back into branding as an individual, so basically what you want to do is differentiate yourself. And there's also a notion of sincerity I want to talk about. Because if you look at brands that are doing a very good job in terms of marketing their products and really be known, and the type of brands that you want to buy from, they're usually people that have a notion of being genuine and sincere. So you look at the product or you look at the type of website and you can say, wow, I really can connect with this brand because they're actually using very sincere type of communication. You hear a lot about storytelling recently. So that's what a lot of entrepreneurs are learning how to do as well, is to communicate on their story and why they have this brand. So as an individual, it's important to understand this notion of sincerity. You know, what are you trying to achieve when you're out communicating to the market in your profile? So usually the first thing I hear from people is about the resume. And the resume for me is just a small piece of your branding. It's something that usually comes in a later stage. So basically, you know by now, and the statistic is quite known, that 80% of jobs are found via the hidden market and networking. So when you network, you're not really showing your resume around. You have to use other techniques. So that's why resume is only for me a piece of the brand. But the brand is really you. It's really what you communicate, what you show. So trying to apply it to the individual level and what you want to portray out there. So that's really my base where I want to put the foundation, is really your brand is you. It's what you stand for, your values, your ethics, your passions as well. I recently read an article where a recruiter was saying, oh my God, all the CVs look the same. Please, people, do you have any passions? You know, do you play any sports? Do you have a hobby? You know, I want to see people. I don't want to see robots. So basically this is something to think about, what is the thing that really makes you tick, and that you're passionate about. So that's really the introduction to the topic. And then what you want to do is, I want to give you some steps to help you with your branding, with your career, basically. So in terms of steps to take, is the thing to know is that changing a career is usually something that people are not entirely prepared for. Meaning that they think they have a resume that they just need to change a couple of words and the orientation, and then people will understand exactly what they want to do in the future. This is not so easy. You have to understand that the branding will be a big piece of it. So step number one is really, what is your blood? What is your DNA? So if you're someone who's passionate, for example, about nature, maybe you want to go towards NGOs that work on that particular topic. If you're passionate about helping people's health, maybe this is something that you should look at. So really understand your strength. And I will help as well in my next blog. I will publish some links to have personality tests, because I really think that the first step is to know yourself, which is something that we don't necessarily have time to do, or if you haven't had a career transition yet, maybe you haven't taken a lot of personality tests and assessments and understanding your skill set. So really it's starting there. It's to have some information about what are your strengths, what are you good at. Are you someone who likes to manage others? Do you like to be more independent, etc.? So this is going to give you an idea about your brand and how you will build your profile around there. So really, what is, I call that your DNA. So make sure you assess yourself and your strength. Number two is really to position yourself on the market. So market is quite vast, and you're not going to be everyone's type of employee. I had this conversation yesterday with somebody about not being everyone's type of employee. We all have companies that we target, but they don't necessarily want us to work for them. And it's not necessarily something that you can control. Just like any kind of relationship, it has to go both ways. So even if we dream to work for L'Oreal or for Procter or for Nestle, they may not dream to have us as an employee, and it's okay. It's part of life, but you just need to know, based on your strength, how can you position yourself so that you're finding the company that's right for you. And that takes a little bit of thinking also about where you worked, where you were happy as well. And if you are a type of person who's already had experiences, you can easily look at what you've done in your past and see where you were happy. If you're a young graduate, then you need to really think also with the personality test and see where your skill set lies and also what the market is about. So that's something that I really insist on, because I think most people jump into the career change or even jump into selecting a type of education or job before they actually think about what it is that they want to do and what is the market offering. So depending on where you're located, you have to see what type of industries are around me. For example, I'm based in Geneva. There's lots of international organizations where people can grow a career here. But if you're in the middle of Switzerland, maybe this type of career is not accessible to you. So you have to see if you're willing to relocate. That's part of the decision making. If you're based in an area where there's a lot of pharma, maybe that's something you need to think about. Am I willing to go into pharma, or do I prefer to move? I always tell people to favor, basically what you like to do. But you have different types of people. Some people just say, I want to live here. That's my thing. That's where I'm happy. That's why I have my family. But then you will need to reassess the type of career that you can build based on companies that are based there. So really the positioning of what I call is really looking at what type of activities and sectors are there where you live, and really do a study on that. Check company listings and check with your local chamber of commerce. Try to think about what companies are based there, not just the large ones that are visible, but also the small companies, because Switzerland is also a small, medium-sized business type of country. So you will find a lot of family type of businesses that are maybe just a few people. So there's lots of opportunities that are not necessarily people that communicate all the time. So if you're a big company, you will have a lot of job ads online, you will be present in a lot of places, but the smaller companies are not necessarily visible and are not necessarily doing the employer branding that the larger companies are doing. So they are there, they just need to be seen, and they might be looking for you. So one way as well, I was thinking about that the other day when I was driving, one way is to drive. It's just to take your car, if you have a car, to drive around and see what kind of companies are there and just write it down and search them up on the web. So that tells you a little bit what's around you. I mean, most people don't even know what's around them, you know, what type of companies. I was in Zurich, and just by taking a bus and going around town, I was able to identify the type of companies that were there that you may not easily find by searching online. So sometimes just the geographical search can help positioning yourself. Step number 3 is really to use your network. So try to think about what type of network you have right now, if you have one or not. Most expats that I know don't really have a lot of network because they're new in town, so they need to start building from scratch. The issue is always about, there's many issues. The first one is about identifying those opportunities. So what type of activities are out in the city where I live? So there's an identification issue. The second one is a confidence issue. I don't have a job right now, so what am I going to say to these people? Am I going to feel comfortable? I wrote a blog article on that as well. You know, I don't have a job, so I can't do X. So you have to work also on the self-esteem part and really look a little bit beyond the job. And what I'm saying in my article is really about understanding that fulfillment is not necessarily linked to a job. I think we're being taught in our Western world that a job is really basically who you are, you know, what you do, your title, your salary. So it's something that's deeply, a deep imprint in our brain, that our value is linked to the career that we have and the job that we have. And that's a little bit of a pity. In other societies, the job is just not necessarily the best, the highest fulfillment. You have a lot of cultures that are more in the Buddhist, you know, and trying to improve themselves and basically working on their confidence in themselves and understanding who they are. So it's really more about the internal fulfillment, not so much external fulfillment towards the outside. So it's something that I think by looking at other cultures, you can also read about it and understand how other cultures will watch that. And it's also about driving your confidence inside of you, not necessarily towards the outside and what people think about you. And then you feel more comfortable when you go around talking to others. Not necessarily, and that's something I'm going to talk more about in the future, because I think there's this idea that career is really important for women and it's a source of fulfillment, and the financial independence, etc., is a source of fulfillment. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about that, and I really think it might be not necessarily the case. I think there's a lot of pressure on women to do everything, you know, work and children and etc. I think source of fulfillment can come from a lot of different areas, and it's not necessarily from a paid job, which, by the way, may not be so fulfilling. If you have a difficult situation at work with a terrible type of structure and environment, probably you won't get any fulfillment. You know, going in nature, I think at this stage in my life brings me a lot of fulfillment. And watching nature is something that I get a lot of peace from, not necessarily from being active in a career, even though I love my career, mind you, but there's other sources. Basically, it's what I found at a later stage in life, is that there's many sources of fulfillment that you can get from talking to people that you care about, and learning from them is also a source of fulfillment. Maybe people around you can bring you a lot of enrich your life in that way. And I find out of all the activities I've done in my life, it's not necessarily when I was working behind a computer that I was receiving this fulfillment. You're getting a job, you have a salary, you have a structure, etc., and maybe you feel proud of that. But in terms of fulfillment, maybe going to a country and volunteering your time and seeing what other people are going through. I mean, there's wars right now in different zones. People are really unhappy. I think there's lots we can learn also from other things than just focusing so much on the job. But that's more of a philosophical issue. But I think it's good also to put that in mind, because sometimes when we're so focused on career, we think that, oh my God, I'm going to go to a networking event, I'm going to look so stupid because I don't have a job. If you're someone who's interested in the world, you're reading about what's going on, you're you're a world citizen, you understand the impact of people's lives, you know, in different countries, you will always have topics that you can talk about and bring your value when you talk to somebody. And really, this is back to branding. So if people meet you in a networking event and they say, wow, this person is really interesting, I had a great conversation, not necessarily linked to job, by the way, but I just had a great conversation with this person and we have a lot in common, then I want to know more about this individual and maybe invite them for a coffee or have a lunch or what have you. And this is where you start relationships. So again, my message here in this Facebook Live, because I do get this question regularly, or what kind of pitch do I need to build, you know, when I go to a networking event, or I want, if I'm an entrepreneur, how do I pitch to others? I think really pitching for me is so unnatural. You have to think about what the other person in front of you is interested in, you know, what are their values and what do they want to hear about, and is that connected with your values? So in other words, if I'm in front of somebody who believes that smoking is great, drinking is great, and it's okay to have wars in the world, I mean, I'm just making this example to be, I'm exaggerating obviously, but it's just to make the point. I can talk to this person, you know, even if this person is a CEO of the largest organization in the world, I just don't fit with that. So that's what you have to think also when you meet people. Are they really the type of people you want to connect with anyways? Do they match up with your values? If they're into things that just make you go, no way, I can't connect with that, then why do you even want to pursue anything with them? So it's really, I think connection should be really natural. So when you meet people, you will have individuals that you connect with easily and others you don't, but it's okay. It doesn't matter, because in the end, that will lead you closer to your next career step. Because the people that you will meet when you start, you know, taking a little bit of a step back in your life and you go around feeling fulfilled, and again, fulfilled doesn't mean having a job, then you can say, you know, I'm just there to meet people, to understand what they're doing, to learn more. So that when I go home, I can say I've learned something today, and you always learn something, by the way. And to have a little bit of a detached approach, then you will see that you get much bigger results. You will start attracting different types of people. You will start attracting different job offers as well. And people will take you a little bit, you will be differentiating yourself from the market as opposed to posting online with everybody else. So I think using your network for that is really important. The step number 4 is for non-typical profiles, which is a big part of people, especially expats coming to Switzerland, because depending on the country where you're from, you may have done different things. Some people have touched a lot of different subjects in their life. They've worked, maybe had different careers already. And the thing is, when they come to Switzerland, they realize, wow, it's a specialist market and you really have to get identified as a specialist. So you need to build that. You need to build your expertise. So this is the time, if you've been the type of person who has done many things, this is the time maybe where you settle for a topic that you're really interested in and you want to specialize a bit more. So you can look at what you've done and say, what is the thing that really makes me passionate and that I really, really enjoy doing? And I'm going to grow this topic. So I'm going to spend time building knowledge on this topic. So to give you an example in my situation, so I do teaching in human resources, I do career coaching. So a lot of my time is spent doing research as well and reading on topics. So this is something you can do even not being employed, basically, because you can grow your knowledge without having an actual job title. You can look at the web, read articles. So knowledge is something that's quite accessible right now. You can also go back to get a degree or get education. You know, if you're missing maybe some education to reach your objective. So there's lots of things that you can do that can bring you pride, that can bring you fulfillment, that can make you feel like you're getting a little bit further in your objective without actually having a job title necessarily immediately. Because sometimes the job happens obviously after you've been identified as being the specialist, because this is what people will purchase from you. It's your specialty that you've developed potentially on your own, usually through work because you've worked for different companies, but you can also build an expertise because you spend some time studying a topic. Let's say that you spent a long time researching everything on photography, and you've actually done a lot of classes on photography, and you've done a portfolio for yourself, and you've built a small website. All of a sudden you become a specialist in photography, and you can actually be seen as that, even though you don't have a job title in it. So you see how now with the web and how technology can be used, you can develop your expertise on your own. And it's all about your curiosity. If you're someone who has this initiative and who's curious about the world, you can easily get access to the tools that will bring you the expertise that you need. So that was for the non-typicals that are trying to find their space. Step number 5 is really about personality. When I went to a conference recently about artificial intelligence, which was very interesting, the big topic was, is artificial intelligence replacing human beings, which is very scary for most people. And there's lots of ways that you can look at this. You can say, yes, artificial intelligence will do our jobs, what we should just be prepared for that. But you can also look at the other piece of it, which is where it can be complement to the artificial intelligence. The things that a computer cannot do yet, which is to have this conscience and to have the soft skills. So basically anything in your personality that you can use related to soft skills development, meaning increase your awareness of others, your empathy for others, your interpersonal skills, communication, the way you can adapt to the person in front of you. If you can become very good at these things, no artificial intelligence is about to do this yet. So you will be selected for many positions. And this is mostly what recruiters are looking for in the end, because when you have a resume that's similar to everyone else, or many people that have a similar background, what's going to make the difference is this. It's the capacity to really build teams, to encourage innovation. So all these things that are more in management and leadership and knowing how to communicate. I said in my blog that the employee of 2017 is someone who can communicate, who has a network. So if you can build these skills, which by the way, don't necessarily need a job, if you can develop those skills even on your own, then you will become a more attractive employee. So really, my message is on personality is really develop your soft skills. So if right now you say, I'm not very good at speaking in public, for example, this is something that I need to develop, and you have the time right now, I would encourage you to take a class in it, practice it. And that way, when you have the interview, you will be more comfortable. And you can also tell your future employer, I developed skills in speaking engagements, I can talk in public. So this is, for example, something you can easily add to your background. Or you're taking classes in interpersonal communication, or anything else that can basically help you, or sales. I think sales is extremely important. Sales is everywhere. It doesn't matter even if you work for not-for-profit. I think knowing how to negotiate, knowing how to basically talk to the person in front of you, this is going to be huge help for you in any job. Because I really think that anybody is undertrained in negotiation. Probably we as women are even more particularly undertrained, but negotiation is something that will help you get around in life from the time when you send your resume until you retire, because you need to negotiate every day for everything, including inside the home. So negotiation skills, communication skills, these are really going to be your selling point to your future employer. And my last step number 6, is really about being tenacious. Because sometimes when you're out there looking for work, or you're rebranding yourself for a career change, you will be faced with hurdles. You will find that people out there are not necessarily responding in the way that you expected. Maybe they're not available, or they're not replying to you, and you think, well, did I pick the right career? Should I change? You have to know that it's going to take some time. So when I do coaching with clients, I always put this in perspective of taking the time. Patience is hard because sometimes you need a job quite fast, and there's always the economic situation. But you really have to think that if you want to find the right job with the right company in a place where you're going to be happy, that's extremely important. You need to give space for time and to take that step back to say, I know that what I'm doing is the right path. I've done everything right. I've rebranded myself. I know my personality, my skills. I'm comfortable with the market and what the jobs that are out there, that they can suit me perfectly. But you just need that one chance when a company is going to be needing you. So it's a match that needs to happen. And when I talked to recruiters recently, about 2 months ago, the message that I received from them is that there's a lot of candidates and there's a lot of companies, but for some reason, sometimes the match is not so easy. And it's hard to explain because sometimes employers are looking for a particular skill maybe that a candidate cannot offer. And sometimes, and I think this is also a trait of our century, is that we want the perfect match where all the, everything crosses, and it's not necessarily the reality. Sometimes you could have a great person, but maybe they don't have necessarily 100%. So it seems like now the trend is really to find the one person that has that fills all the boxes. So it puts a little bit of pressure, I think, on both sides. But you have to think that at some point there will be a company that's interested in you, whether you match all their criteria or maybe you've done a little bit of a different approach and you ended up being successful. I have some great success stories of people who said, I called, I picked up the telephone, they were really, really persistent, and it worked for them. You just have to see which type of culture and if it's possible or not. For example, sometimes you do get the phone number of the person on the ad, and that means that the culture, whether it's a firm, a recruitment firm, or a company, that means they're open. If they put their phone number and their and their email, that means they're open to talk to you. If you don't have anything, then probably they don't necessarily want to be contacted by everybody. Could be also an issue of having enough people to support, the queries from everybody that applies. Can be quite a lot of energy to reply to everybody. So I don't want people to take it personally. Sometimes firms are staffed differently and they may not get enough people to reply. This is an issue for feedback. A lot of candidates want feedback in their application. They want to know if they're going in the right direction. Unfortunately, companies are not necessarily in a stage where they can give feedback, and that's why people like myself that are working directly with individuals or recruitment firms, if they can do it, they will be happy to help, but it's not always possible to get feedback. So I think people working in career are basically the only ones at this stage that know enough about the market, understand the companies, that can give you proper feedback. Meaning sometimes friends and family want to help, and I always get, especially on the resume, I say you can have as many opinions as you have people around you on your resume. But in the end, I always take the feedback or the advice from the expert. So it's great to have a friend's opinion, it's great to have family opinion, but in the end, you need expert eyes on your profile for your job search. So that's, for me, that's the value, otherwise you're just getting different opinions, but it's not necessarily the answer that you're looking for. So be tenacious, be ready to put in the work. Looking for a job right now is not necessarily something that you can do just a few hours a day. You really have to be out there and getting introductions to people, going to a lot of events, and it takes energy, and I'm very aware of that. When I talk to individuals, I do understand that it takes a lot of energy, and especially when you're not used to it. But by the way, everything is you can learn anything. So it takes practice, and the more you do it, the better it gets. So meaning the first couple of times you will go to networking events, you'll feel tired, drained, because it's new, and your body, your personality, everything is not used to it. But once you start doing it more, you will feel very comfortable. It will come almost second nature. So it's the same as practicing a sport. At the beginning, you might be completely tired and your body aches everywhere because it's not used to it. But if you start doing it regularly, you won't even feel anything because your body now is used to the regular training. The idea is regular. So just like a sports coach would say, you need to do regular practice to be good in your sport. A career coach like myself would say you need to do regular work on your job search to get the results. So it's all about being regular, being consistent, and then you will start seeing results. But when people ask me a little bit about the agenda that they should have, I don't want people to think that they need to work 10 hours a day on their job search nonstop, including weekends. I think you need to have some time also to recoup and to break off from this whole career and job search thing. But you need to put enough energy that you start getting results. So it's finding the right happy medium part here. Before I continue, is there any questions there? I see we have quite a few people online, so I'm saying hi to people that may know me outside of this video, because it's always nice to see people again that you know. So next is about giving you some tips as well on rebranding yourself. So when I was working before with, I would say, more senior people, recently I've had, I would say, beginners in their career or people that are in their 30s or early 40s. But before I also worked with very senior, meaning in the 50s type of individuals. And one thing that I've noticed is that they were still stuck in their old markets and jobs and so forth. So that's a little bit difficult as well to do. When you've worked for a company many years, I would say 10 plus, especially if it's the same company, I think it probably is even more difficult. You're stuck in one world, one way of thinking, one industry, so it's really hard to project yourself. And this is really, especially in the rebranding your career, you will have to think about, okay, I've done all these things, I've worked maybe 10 years for a company, but now I'm projecting myself into a new project, whatever that may be. Could be you're starting your own business. It could be that you're completely changing. That happens. People change completely and go into something new. So you would have to start projecting yourself in your new project, meaning that you will have to be used to the new language potentially. So a good example of that is people who want to go from the commercial sector to the not-for-profit. Completely different worlds, completely different language. And I've done the transition myself when I went to work for a not-for-profit. Back into 2009, it was a completely different world. So even though you're in a functional role, like I was, working in human resources, it's still completely different. The language that people use, it's really something you almost need to train yourself on. At the beginning, I didn't really understand what was funding, donors. I was mixing sometimes the terms, etc. So if you want to make such a transition from one sector to another, my advice would be get already comfortable with the terms. Really understand the stakes. You know, when you work in not-for-profit, it's not the same stakes. I mean, when you're in the commercial sector, your idea is to sell and to grow your business. When you're in not-for-profit, your idea is to get donors and to grow your mission, which is a little bit different because it's really about building partnerships and so forth. So you really need to be aware of those differences and start really understanding the terms, and it needs to reflect on your profile. So typically, and I'll give you an example, if someone wants to go into not-for-profit and I look at their profile and it says sales professional who developed, who increased sales by 20% every year in the commercial sector, this is not talking to me as a not-for-profit. I don't understand what you mean. I'm talking donors, I'm talking funding, I'm talking, globalization, about, different issues like warming, the world warming and disease in the world, etc. This is not really talking to me. I'm on a mission. In not-for-profit, you're on a mission. You want to save lives, you want to help, people get better health, etc. Sales doesn't really, in terms of percentages, that's not the way you would present it. So you need to rebrand your profile so that your future potential employer can understand what you can do for them. But you can use that as a stepstone. So for example, if you're very good and you've developed business when you are in commercial sector, you can say you can increase donors. You understand what it takes to do business development, so you can get donors for the organization. So there's lots of ways you can transition from one sector to another. Hi, I see someone, Adrienne. Hi, nice to meet you. So I have a question. My girlfriend works in Romania as a clerk at the court in my hometown since 4 or 5 years. What similar law-related jobs should we look for her? She only knows English and French. I'm from Zurich. And I'm just trying to see. So this is a very individual type of situation. So we're typically talking about transitioning from one job in one country to another job. Nice to meet you too, yeah. So here it's, I like the example of law, because I was saying to somebody a little bit earlier in the week, with law, it's typically a profession that you practice based on the country specifics. It's a little bit like the medical field. So when you're a doctor in one country and you want to go to another country, you suddenly realize that you may have to redo your training because there's regulations that make it that you can practice. So I have someone saying, yeah, this is also the case for my wife. So a lot of legal wives that need to find a job in Switzerland. So with the legal field, you really have to look at which parts of this legal field would be you could transition to another country. So obviously, if you're going to court and you have to have a bar, unfortunately this person cannot do the court type of work, because she would have to take the bar in Switzerland to be able to represent her clients. However, in certain organizations, they hire people in legal, in companies, to do the administration. I worked also in not-for-profit, people that were working with us in human resources on contracts. So you would have to look in the spectrum of things that you can do in legal, reporting, looking at legal from human resources perspective, looking at legal from, now there's a lot of things about website, copyright type of situations, and intellectual property. So these are a little bit more international, and I know I can tell you for a fact one area that I couldn't find anybody to help me was on intellectual property and the legal aspect for websites. Because it's still very new in Switzerland, where websites, now people are starting to build their own websites, for example, and to find someone that could help you on which legal parts you need to put on your website, to me, that's a niche that needs to be taken by somebody or several people. But there's areas that you can probably find opportunities in Switzerland, including Zurich. So yeah, you have to look at the job descriptions. So when she looks at legal in Switzerland and in Zurich, if that's the target that she has, you have to look at the job description and see which requirements they need for the job. So are they looking for someone who has a bar exam in Switzerland? Are they looking for someone who just has a degree in law? Usually they will want someone with experience in that field. So if you work in medical, they would want people from medical, from pharma. I mean, you have different types of law as well, and legal expertise. So this is an area where I think they want people with experience, and potentially also experience in Switzerland. But you can always start as a junior person maybe, but there you would have to really think about how to find the hidden market, and really what are the hidden possibilities, maybe the jobs that are not advertised, where you could start somewhere and grow your knowledge so that you can position yourself, especially at the beginning. If you need to learn the language, etc., there's always a transition period. Again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. You need to build up your profile to have more opportunities. So at the beginning, when you're a newcomer, no one knows you, you're an unknown entity, people are a bit afraid, so they're not going to offer you necessarily all the best opportunities yet. So you need to work your way through and start from scratch, and really be willing to put in the time to show your value, to learn the local language, to work hard, and then people will see that you've put in the time, and then you get a little bit also more opportunities. Another thing is to look if she can find anything in legal, is to say what would be other things that I could do with my background. So there we're on a skills assessment, which is something that a lot of people will need to do at some point, because they are stuck, they're not finding jobs in their field when they're coming to Switzerland. So that's why doing a skills assessment and understanding, what are your skills, what are your strengths, and what else would open up to you with your skills, maybe where there's more demand than just one specific area like legal. Because I do think the support jobs now, there's not so many. I think functional jobs like law or HR or finance, now with automation, a lot of things are also being done with software and computers, so they have less personnel. So you have to find which opportunities are growing. As I said, for me, copyright, intellectual properties, there's always jobs there. So you have to find what are the opportunities that exist in Switzerland and how she can position herself on that. So I hope that answers the question for the legal part. So to go back on what I was saying about really understanding the language of the target that you have. So it could be how they work, what type of language are they using online, where they talk about their companies, what type of, even the coloring. So we're on the branding, trying to match the branding of your target. So if you see that companies use certain words, certain colors in their website, try to fit, a little bit while staying genuine. Obviously, you can change yourself, but really trying to see if there's a match there. If you think, wow, I can see that there's a match there, potential match. So that's a tip. The other one is really then to work on your tools. So what I call the tools in my vocabulary is really your profile online, your resume and your cover letter. Everything needs to be consistent. So once you've done all your research, you understand a little bit the language of your target, then you need to understand how you're going to make your profile look suitable for these kinds of targets. So for example, someone looking for a job in legal, and once you identify what are the type of companies that are hiring, the type of skills they're looking for, then to see a little bit how you can build your profile to match that as close as possible. And see if there's a gap. If there's a gap, maybe it's something you can fill with education. Maybe you need to do a degree locally to understand a little bit more, and also network. That's the other side of going to do education, is to network with locals so that you can integrate yourself a little more. Adrian is saying, thanks a lot. Maybe we will require your help for more advice as soon as the stars look actively. As she starts looking actively. Yes, I'm here. That's what I do. Yeah, helping people with their career potential and look for the right opportunity. So be happy to talk to your wife. I get a little heart. It's cute. And a little finger. Yeah, that's great. Always happy to see that people appreciate those kinds of Facebook Live. I really enjoy doing them as well. I think it's a great way for me to share my expertise with you, to also make you think about what is at stake from the beginning, because sometimes I have people who contact me after a long time, maybe 6 months or even more, and they are at the point where they say, okay, I'm really in a situation where I'm completely stuck, and because time has already elapsed, and maybe they've gone to the market in a way where they applied everywhere, and now it's going to be hard to be consistent from there. So it changes a little bit how we're going to work together. So I think the sooner you can say, okay, I'm in Switzerland, now I need to look for a job or to change careers or what have you, then we can go at it properly. Because there is definitely a way by which you can be successful. That's why I've built my program, my online career program, because there's different steps that people take to be successful and to find a job. But if you don't have the methodology, you probably go at it as you think it will work, but it might take a long time. Okay, I have, hello Isabel from Lee. Hello Isabel, for someone with less than 4 years of experience, how many months of unemployment is considered too long? And do you think we should take anything to fill the gap, even if it's not nice, I guess is what you're trying to say. I like the question. I think it's a valid question. How many months of unemployment is considered too long? I really think employers, and that's based on all the conferences I've been to, all the talks I've had with recruiters, I always hear that companies prefer to hire people that are already in jobs. So meaning they will find the person that works for the competitor or is already doing something somewhere. They would be more attracted with someone inside a position. I've even heard that employers refuse to get a candidate who's unemployed. So that can happen. You just have to be aware of it, but it's not everybody, thank God. So there are some companies that will still interview you. I think at any stage you will always have a market, but you have to understand that after 6 months, it's really already starting to be difficult. And after a year, then the gap is really big. And then you have to explain. So if you have a valid explanation, and that's what we work on when I work with individuals, to fill the gap as much as possible. And sometimes people did travel They took a break. Women, for example, had kids, so they took a time to be at home with their children. So there's always reasons for the gap. But we have to think of a story basically so that it makes sense and you own it and you're happy saying it the day of recruitment. I think any story is going to be okay if you can present it in a way where, okay, this is something you've done for yourself, if you traveled, but now you're ready to look again and you're motivated. So it's really how you deal with your past. You know, if you have a big gap and you're thinking about it already and that's all you focus on, and you go to the interview and you already have that in your head, obviously then it will show, and then your interview will not be as efficient as if you were really completely comfortable with it. So at some point, anybody will have some kind of a gap in their career. So the question is, how do you make that fit in the bigger picture? And the day of recruitment, how do you tell the story so that you convince the person in front of you that you're the right person for the job? So it's really about communication and, again, convincing the person in front of you and being genuine about it. Because don't try to hide things to a recruiter. It never works. Actually, it will probably make your case worse because recruiters hate to be lied to. That's probably the number one. And if they find the inconsistency, then they will feel that they've been cheated, and usually it doesn't really look good for you. So the best way is really to understand that whatever your past is, it is what it is. You just have to be consistent and coherent about it, and then recruiters will accept it, you know. So it's really, if you don't put the finger on it, then the recruiter will be okay with it. But that's the thing, really. It's to own it, just like your background. So I hope I answered the question, maybe a long-winded answer, but I like this one on the gap and really how you communicate with at the interview, because a lot of people get really, really stressed on, especially if they had a bad experience as well. That's another one. Let's say your last job was really stressful and horrible, and you had a really bad experience with a boss, let's say, which I would say is a typical example. And that will show also during the interview that there was maybe something going on wrong there. And the recruiter will sense that. So you really have to get to a stage where you're able to talk about it without being too winded about it, which is not so easy. It takes practice, so you can get over that hump. So there's ways, you know, to practice. Again, we go back to that same thing. The more you practice something, the better you will be the day of the interview, and it will flow. Thanks. Do we need to ask to also explain the gap in the resume, or do we just talk in the interview? Explaining the gap, yeah, especially if it's a big gap. I mean, if you just, let's say you just finished your job and you have a couple of months, then probably people consider it's natural. You know, you've just finished your job and you're searching. It's been a couple of months. They won't even ask you. But if they see a gap, probably they'll bring it to your attention. They'll say, okay, you haven't worked now for 6 months or more. Have you done any studying? You've been abroad, family reasons. They will try to find out. So that's why you have to be prepared for it. Because the thing is, with the interview, you don't really know how far the recruiter will want to push the questions. You have to be ready for it. What if I get asked this and that? So you need to be prepared to answer in a way that doesn't make you look bad or damages your profile. So you have to be prepared to answer positively. Okay, I get a question from Nicola Hargreaves. Hello, Isabel. About career change and education, is there any traineeship or apprenticeship suitable for career changers, 25, 30-year-old people? Thank you. Okay, good question. I really think there's a space and there's a case for that, for helping people that are changing careers, especially women going back to work. Because let's say you've been out of the workforce for a few years and you still have your skills and you can still bring a lot of value, but sometimes for women there's also being prepared to being in the workforce again and the transition. And I think it would be great to have programs where women would come back, maybe go through a 6 months or 1 year program or what have you, where they get mentored by maybe people that are in the company and that can help them get, learn a job, for example. And I know that exists because I've heard about it in the jewelry and watchmaking sector. they had a whole program for women where they were brought inside the organization and prepared for taking on a job there. So there's a few of them. I would probably go out there and try to encourage it as much as possible, just like job sharing, which is something I really believe in. I think it would solve a lot of these people, and I say people because I think also it could be interesting for men who want to work part-time. I think it could be for anybody, not just women with children. Working part-time could really be a choice after a certain age, that you say, I just want to work part-time. So I really believe that the job sharing could be a solution. Programs to get people back to work as well, maybe after accidents, after giving birth and having been away maybe from the workforce. So there's lots that can be done. Here we're talking more about social policies. In Switzerland, there's different, especially depending on where you live, because each canton is very independent. There's different programs that are happening. I know, for example, I'm going to an event in Rolle, which is in the canton of Vaud, in the next 4 weeks, I believe, 5 weeks, where we're going to talk about the economy and how to bring jobs to the local economy. So I think really being present in those meetings to really make your voice as a local resident is going to help also policy making. And I know in Switzerland, they really encourage the grassroots and people voting for different policies and so forth. So I think you really have to make it heard as well as an individual, because there's definitely a room to have some of these programs to help women and men as well, to help people get back into the workforce or encourage those changes which take some help. And companies need to also be involved to encourage people to come even if they have a different background. Okay, I get a question. Hi Isabel, thank you so much for your advice. It's really up to date and fact-based. Thank you. Well, yeah, that's my job, I guess. Do you have experience with recruitment with UN agencies as well? Yes, I do. I worked with UN agencies. When I was working, I had 2 jobs where I was quite involved with UN agencies. So yeah, that's also a different world out there, because they have their own processes and procedures, and it's also a different world that you need to learn. So if you come from the commercial sector, you really have to understand that, you know, everything from the time when you're hired, the way your job will go is completely different, because you have to follow the UN type of structure and procedures. Okay, I have another question here. Can you provide advice for recruitment in Sweden, specifically pharma or non-profit organization? So my specialty is jobs in Switzerland, because this is where I've been based now for the last 10 years. So I know the market, I have my network here and so forth. I'm not networked particularly with Sweden. That said, part of what I'm explaining in my videos and my different products, online products, is basically about branding, about going to the market, about knowing what you're looking for, finding out about your skills. So these, you need to do the same thing, you know, whether you're looking for work in Switzerland or elsewhere. I think it's a mandatory almost step to find a job nowadays. So that's the part that I would say standard, you know, branding yourself, preparing, etc. Then the part more on the market, then you just have to study, you just have to research and to understand what type of companies are out there and what they're looking for. And every country, every organization, you know, is looking for maybe different types of talent. But I would say that most of them would be looking for the things I was talking about earlier, being someone who's quite comfortable with the digital world, very good in communication, who's able to engage with others, you know, especially with teams, etc. So I think if you build this type of profile for yourself, you will be a good candidate for any company in any country, which is what I said in my blog. So then it's just about identifying which companies are out there in the country you target, and communicating with these companies. So that was on the question about recruitment in Sweden. Yeah, I think it could be interesting. I really promote also to work in different countries. I think it's great sometimes there's work permit issues and so forth that need to be solved, but it's great exposure. I mean, I really enjoy the fact that I started my career in the US, so I was able to see how companies work there. then worked in France, which is a completely different scenario, and again in Switzerland, which is a different scenario. So I was exposed, as I say in my profile and my story, I was exposed to many different company cultures, languages, people, management. So I've seen a lot of different things, so to say. Thank you for being on Facebook Live today with me, taking the time to watch the video. I really hope it helps. So my last thing I wanted to talk about before I close this this Facebook Live, I wanted to talk a little bit about online profiling, because sometimes people ask me the question about what should my LinkedIn profile say and how do I market myself via the online medium. So based on what I explained about the growth of the digital presence in our day-to-day life, and the fact that companies are working also more and more, and they're looking for people that are very comfortable with tools and digital. I talked about it in my class yesterday, to really be prepared for that and almost you know, be the type that's curious about it as well and understand the stakes in place. So I say, if you're not on LinkedIn right now, if you're not quite familiar, I would say get a base familiarity at least, because it will make yourself, when you have the interview with an employee, it will make yourself more marketable, to understand, you know, the digital world, to understand that now companies need to be online, that they need to be engaged in social media. This is really the 21st century. So if you don't really know so much about it, doesn't matter if you apply for any job. I think any job would be linked to the digital world in the next years. So you need to show that you understand the trends and you're quite familiar. So LinkedIn is really a base for you as a person that's looking to build a career in Switzerland or in any country. You really have to understand how LinkedIn works, what type of information you need to put on there, how you use it, etc., etc. And there's other social media platforms as well, which are not necessarily so much linked to the job search, but I think also Facebook has some interesting features that could be helping your profile, especially if you're interested in topics. You can blog, you can have a Facebook page with a community. But the thing is that you want companies to see that you're someone that's really in the 21st century. Because that's something that they can definitely see as a quality for the individual. So if they're looking for someone that works, whether it's legal, finance, supply chain, wherever, they're going to prefer the candidate that's a little bit a step ahead. So in other words, if you understand that, you know, a little bit about the trends and how to use the web and so forth, they will always prefer someone that that is a little bit on the edge of their field, you know, rather than someone who's just living by with the minimum knowledge that they need. So I would say develop your knowledge in your field, grow your field of expertise, and really look at the trends and communicate on them on LinkedIn, on any social media that you feel comfortable with. And again, you can do also on Facebook. So it's really about building up your profile and your knowledge, and then you can be seen as the go-to person for your field. And that's what I've done with a few candidates recently when we really worked on their profile building, having a nice photo of them. I've had them do the photo 3 times. They probably hate me by the end of the session, but I'm really a perfectionist. I want people to have the best possible profile for themselves. So really invest in a good photo. The text of your profile needs to be well written, without mistakes, obviously. But trust me, I see a lot of people with typos when I looked on LinkedIn. So really not having typos, not having mistakes, really have a clear background that people can immediately see what you do, and contact details. I see too many people still where I'm looking for how do I contact this person? But you have to think there's a paid option on LinkedIn that you have to purchase to have more emails. And I would say probably most people don't want to bother with that. So if you're easily reachable because you have your contact details right on top of your profile, I even saw some people that can put it in their header. That may be a little bit pushed. But if you have it at least on the top of the profile, you know, that people can contact you without having to send emails, that's even better. So anything that makes your profile easy to contact, easy to understand, that we understand immediately what it is that you do without having to search and find the information, that's going to make you a more attractive employee. And then there's this whole aspect about, which is probably the topic of another Facebook Live, but really about how people search for candidates, and that whole thing about search engines, and how recruiters match, with your profile. How do they find you, basically, and how do they research you? So it's really preparing yourself on that end of what it is that I need to do to really be found on the web. And really the web is the place where people find you. So job boards are still relevant. And I do tell people, go and post on a job board if you find something that fits you. But probably as you're getting more and more experience, you will find that there's less job vacancies that fit you, because probably most of them are very junior, the ones that are posted, and the more senior experienced type of profiles are not necessarily on job boards. They're out there on the hidden market. The word is going that people are looking for a resource, but it's not necessarily online on the job board. So it's through your network that you will get to that job. So yeah, that was my message on the importance of online profiling. So to finish my message here about the tips for action for you to immediately put in place after this Facebook Live. The first one would be to study your local market that you're on. So wherever you are in Switzerland or elsewhere, if people are watching from another country, really look at your local market before you rebrand yourself. Because what you don't want to do is build energy to build up your profile in something where there's no needs. And I say this because I do know people do this. They will invest time and energy in something where there's no market. And it's a little bit of a pity, because even though you're passionate about the topic, and the one thing I can think about, which by the way I really think is important, it's anything that's linked to sustainable development. I think it's important. I think everyone, including our politicians, need to worry about it. But there's not necessarily many jobs there. We would like, I'm the first one who would love to see more companies involved in it and building better products and resources for the environment. But it's still not there. So if you're a specialist in that field, probably there's not going to be many jobs you can position yourself on. So that's just an example of a job where you're not going to find a lot of opportunities, and there's probably more like this. So really study your market where you're certain that when you get a degree, for example, that there would be jobs available. So make sure that there's a market, there's a need, it's growing. I did a Facebook Live where I explained a little bit the trends. Definitely healthcare is a sector that's growing, pharma, anything related to basically health is growing. Also growing anything linked to digital and coding and web development. If you're in those fields, there's always going to be jobs in the future. So these are some of the ideas. The second tip for action is really to see if you need help to rebrand your resume from outside, because sometimes it's a little bit difficult when you understand what you need to do, but how do you apply it to your own case? There's the theory and then there's the application. So how do you apply that to your situation? What gap do you have? Do you need education? That's something usually people ask me, is do I need additional education? And as I teach my students, education is not necessarily for training. Actually, training is not necessarily the thing that will fill the gap. The gap could be something else. Maybe you're in a country where there's no opportunities for your type of skill. And training is not necessarily the answer, because if you want to stay in that type of field, just getting another additional certificate in something where there's no jobs anyway is not going to help you. But if you're in a growing field, it could help. So you have to check also that. And the last tip is really about building a branding strategy that matches your values. That's very important. So you don't want to overly shape yourself in a way to fit. I think it wouldn't work anyway, but to try to fit everybody and to please everybody. I think you need at some point to say, this is what I stand for, this is where I'm going, and you will attract the right companies or the right opportunities to you. But really taking also an edge a little bit to say, this is what I stand for, and I'm not going to be one amongst the others. Because when I look at LinkedIn, for example, sometimes I think, oh my God, everyone is the same and same type of vocabulary, and no one really stands out. So you have to think, okay, I'm the recruiter, I'm looking for specific skill set. You know, how can I brand myself to be noticed and to be credible? This is going to be important, so that I get an opportunity for an interview. So there's different ways to do that. So that's a lot of work for you to do after this Facebook Live. But at least I hope it was helpful, that you learned a little bit about how you can improve right now your branding for your career and your next steps. So again, I do these every month. I have a different topic I'm targeting. Again, for next month, the topic is going to be about networking and really how to use your network. This is something that I've done several Facebook Live already on, because I think it's important. So the exact title is How to Navigate Your Network, and you can register right now. It's happening first Thursday of May. And you can also ask me questions on networking in Switzerland, etc., etc. So I hope you have a very good rest of the day and the week, that you have wonderful Easter holidays, if you have some holidays, and hopefully I can talk to you again. Okay, I have Sarah who says, very helpful. I will get back for your professional help. Thank you. I'm here. I'm on Facebook, also checking email and messaging quite often. So feel free to send me a message with your question and I'll answer. Okay, have a great day and I will talk to you soon. Thanks.